This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
It is 5 o'clock here on your Friday. Good morning to you. I'm Lauren Casey.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. Here's what's making headlines on this June 5th. Demonstrations continued in Indianapolis for a 7th straight day and even persisted overnight, while protesters say they're going to keep up their efforts this weekend.
Mayor Joe Hogsett says an Indianapolis Confederate statue will be removed in the next couple of days. Why it took years after it was scheduled for removal for the city to take action.
And powerful images have come out of the protests around the country. Why one local photographer felt it was important that he captured these historic moments here in Indianapolis. It is 5 o'clock and we need to get a check of our Storm Team 6 forecast.
That's right. Todd Clossett is standing by right now from home. Todd, we want to know what we can expect as we head out the door today, and we kind of want to look ahead to the weekend.
Yeah, the weekend, definitely something to look forward to, Lauren, as the humidity will be gone and we'll have plenty of sunshine and comfortable temperatures. Today, a little uncomfortable still with the humidity that is around, and because of that moisture that's in the atmosphere, and that's exactly what humidity is, we're dealing with a little bit of patchy fog across the area. The visibilities have come up in some locations in southern locales, such as Bloomington. You're above a mile now, but they've also dropped in northern locations. So just be aware that there's a little bit of patchy fog out there once the sun comes up. Should be able to burn it off very, very quickly. Storm Team 6 radar is quiet here this morning, but you do notice there's a little bit of cloud cover in spots, but in downtown Indianapolis, the skies are clear and a beautiful full moon out there. Temperatures just above or just below 70 degrees rather in most locations, and as we go throughout the day today, right back up into the mid to upper 80s for highs. There is a small chance for some storms later on this afternoon. More on that coming up in just a little bit.
All right, Todd, thank you so much. Let's take a look right now at traffic up in Boone County. This is I-65 near US 52 in the Lebanon area. This is a spot where we've had several semi-crashes over the past few weeks, so I checked in with INDOT to see if there's anything going on that we need to alert you to. There is construction in this area, and they tell us that there are some lane shifts in the area. They've been repairing guardrail. They've had some semis go off the right shoulder of the road, and there is a sign in place that's been in effect since late May to have semis use the left lane through this construction zone. This is near mile marker 147. So just keep that in mind for your commute. Actually, the last couple semi-crashes that she says told police that they fell asleep behind the wheel. So just stay alert as you're out there, and if you're heading through a construction zone or you come upon construction, be sure to reduce your speed and pay attention to any lane shifting.
It is 5:02 on your Friday morning, and this 7th day of demonstrations continued overnight in Indianapolis. A small group sitting on the Soldiers and Sailors Monument in Monument Circle and talking with officers about the change they're fighting for. During the day, a smaller group of protesters occupied the circle and walked to Mass Ave. Our Alyssa Donovan is live at the circle this morning, where a few protesters, as we said, were still out until just hours ago. Alyssa.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, Meredith, we're told that they were out here until about a half an hour ago. So some of those protesters really stood their ground until the early morning hours today. And this was an extension of that protest that happened yesterday. We are going into the 7th day of, or yesterday rather, was the 7th day of protests. Today, we are expecting protests once again. This will be the 8th day of protests. But yesterday's protest, as you said, started here on Monument Circle, and protesters marched from the circle to the State House and then over to Mass Avenue. Diners along Mass Ave watching the protesters as they delivered their message. And this is some video of those protesters from this morning that were just here on the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. And of course, all these protests stem from Minneapolis over George Floyd, which has fueled much of the protests locally. But we did speak with one protester yesterday who says this is also about Dre'Jon Reed. That protester says he wants to continue protesting on behalf of Reed's family.
I'm letting them know exactly what his mother wants, what her demands are, and keeping that before people, reminding people of that, but also reminding them of what that mother had to go through. No mother should have to do that, no parent, period. But we've got to make sure that the message is clear. IMPD must tell the truth.
And that protest yesterday started a bit later in the day as people are trying to conserve their energy, as we have now been doing this for a week straight. And we have learned that another protest is scheduled today at 4 p.m. Protesters are set to meet at the Northwest headquarters, and that is the location where the officer involved in the Drejon Reed case would have reported to after that happened. And we are expecting these protests to continue over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday as well. The mayor and the police chief expecting to address that at some point today. Reporting live, Alyssa Donovan, RTV6.
Alyssa, thank you for the update. It is 5:05 on your Friday, and local religious leaders plan to meet with the mayor's office again in the next 2 weeks to discuss police accountability. In a meeting yesterday, the members of the group Faith in Indiana shared the actions they want the city and IMPD to consider. They include looking at existing use of force and discipline policies, requiring independent investigations when police use force, and equipping every officer with body cameras. The group says they're encouraged by the discussion.
It tells us that the mayor is listening to us, is interested in what we have to say, and we have no reason to believe he is not going to follow through with the intentions that came from that meeting.
Well, last month, the city and IMPD announced a series of police reforms that are in line with those demands. They include rolling out body cameras this summer and updating their use of force policy. That update should go before a committee by next week.
Mayor Joe Hogsett announced that the Confederate monument in Garfield Park will be removed in the coming days. The action coming more than 2 years after a resolution passed to have it taken down. The statue is dedicated to Confederate soldiers who died at a Union prison camp in Indianapolis. According to the city, it was moved to the park in 1928 following efforts by public officials who were active in the KKK and wanted to make the monument more visible to the public. In 2017, the Parks Board voted to remove the monument once it secured funding. The mayor released a statement saying in part, quote, "For some time we have urged that this grave monument belongs in a museum, not in a park, but no organization has stepped forward to assume that responsibility. Time is up and this grave marker will come down," end quote.
Well, you can see plywood covering businesses here in the downtown area, and owners say that this may be here for a while. For those restaurants and shops damaged after protests last weekend, they're finding it hard to get glass to replace their windows. Each pane you typically find in businesses is custom made, and it requires careful installation. With a back order of glass panes and glass installing contractors in high demand, many have to wait.
We've definitely seen an influx of phone calls from the businesses downtown looking for replacement for obviously their damaged windows, doors, storefronts.
We're going to be this way for a month at least. I mean, you know, if your glass is broken, you're not going to get glass for a while.
Well, several of the businesses we checked in with told us that they likely have to keep their windows boarded up for several weeks. Thousands gathered at a Minneapolis church to remember George Floyd.
Family, friends, and political leaders spoke at the service. Reverend Al Sharpton calling on the nation to continue fighting for the system to change. He also announced a second march on Washington set to happen August 28th. Family members spoke saying they will always remember Floyd as a, quote, gentle giant. That service is the first of many to be held in the coming weeks. A public viewing and service will be held in North Carolina, where Floyd was born on Saturday. His body will then return to Houston for a public memorial on Tuesday. There have been daily protests since Floyd died on May 25th, and health officials fear that could result in a spike of coronavirus cases. John Lawrence reports.
I will see everybody tomorrow. Please, let's go home safe, okay? People who have protested within the last 2 weeks are advised to get tested for COVID-19.
I do think there is a potential, unfortunately, for this to be a seeding event.
Dr. Robert Redfield, the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, says the risk of getting infected is more likely in larger cities that haven't controlled outbreaks.
Minneapolis happens to be one that was still having significant transmission. D.C. is another one. We really want those individuals to highly consider being evaluated.
Although some protesters wear masks, there's minimal social distancing within the crowds, and tear gas, used occasionally by law enforcement, can make people cough and increase the likelihood of spreading the virus.
We have advocated strongly the ability to have face coverings and masks available to protesters so that they can at least have those coverings.
The CDC published a forecast Thursday that predicts more than 127,000 deaths in the U.S. by June 27th. Researchers say the data projects a decline in weekly coronavirus deaths, but that could change if the coronavirus thrives among protesters. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
At 5:09, powerful images have come out of the protests around the country, even right here in Indianapolis. And this morning, we're putting the spotlight on a local photographer who captured these moments you're seeing here on your screen. Alexander Mazabel is typically a portrait photographer, but got out of his comfort zone to document the protests in downtown Indy. While taking photos, he says he was tear gassed at least 6 times. Mazabel hopes that future generations learn from these moments in history when they look at the photos.
Everyone that's down there has their own story. So every picture I'm trying to capture a little bit of what they want to say as well.
Well, you can see more of Alexander's pictures and this story. It's at theindychannel.com. The time right now is 5:10. We want to toss things over to Todd at his home and see what we can expect for our Friday forecast.
You know, it's not a bad day for us today, Lauren. You're going to hear me mention the chance of thunderstorms, but don't let that curtail your plans if you do have them outdoors here throughout the day today. It's just some spotty storms later on this afternoon. This morning, there's a little bit of patchy fog that is out there, but we are not dealing with any really reduced visibility, so that is good news. And as soon as the sun comes up here this morning, which is at 6:18, we'll start to burn that fog off very quickly. Temperatures hovering in the upper 60s to right around 70 degrees through the 8 a.m. hour. And you notice all the clear skies across most of central Indiana. The storms are off to our west. It's just that broken line of storms that'll be heading our way later on this afternoon and into the evening hours. Not expecting any severe weather. And look at the highs. Once again, almost everybody very close to 90 degrees. We'll talk more about the weekend for you in just a few minutes.
All right, Todd, thank you so much. As pandemic restrictions are lifted, more sports are ready to begin their regular seasons. But not all will be back to normal completely. Coming up, the big announcement from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway about the plans for the Brickyard 400.
And the Tour de Cure is set for this weekend. Still ahead, a look at the special plans for this year's virtual event. We'll be right back.
New 2020 tonight on ABC.
We are continuing to follow the latest on the COVID-19 outbreak here in Indiana. The State Department of Health confirmed 20 new deaths between May 2nd and Wednesday. 452 new cases were also reported, bringing the total number of cases to more than 36,000. 295,000 people have been tested so far. 12.7% of those have tested positive.
Some big news from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The 4th of July race weekend will run without spectators, and that's due to the coronavirus. And that includes the Brickyard 400. Stage 5 of Indiana's reopening plan allows sports teams to hold events with social distancing starting on July 4th. But Indianapolis and Marion County are moving more slowly than the rest of the state because of the high numbers of cases and deaths in the county. IMA says it is still committed to welcoming fans to the Indy 500 when it takes place on its rescheduled date, that is, of August 23rd. Soccer in Indianapolis is ready to return. The Indy 11 announcing the United Soccer League Board of Governors voted in favor of returning to play for the season. A tentative start date is set for July 11th. More information on schedules and safety plans will be shared in the coming weeks.
More people are starting to get back on planes, giving some airlines hope to fill more seats this summer. United and American Airlines have both announced plans to schedule more trips in July. American said it will operate at 55%, which is a huge jump from its 20% in April and May. Meanwhile, United says it will resume 130 of its nonstop routes in the U.S. If both airlines are able to fill the flights, it would pass market expectations for the summer. For the first time in its history, the American Diabetes Association will host a virtual Tour de Cure. The event is tomorrow morning and will be on Facebook Live. Our Kelsey Anderson joins us live this morning with a look at the virtual event and how one team is working to be the #1 fundraiser.
Well, if you look at the Tour de Cure homepage, you will see that Team Indy Kappa is the #1 fundraiser in Indiana for their category, and they hope to keep it that way through Saturday using a little friendly competition. Their captain, Derek Jackson, says he keeps his team motivated by letting them know not only where they stand against other teams, but where they stand against each other. He says he believes that motivation is the reason they are on top right now. The ADA gives out awards for people who meet fundraising milestones, but members of Team Indy Kappa say that's not why they do it.
Well, it's just a great organization. We try to do the best for the community that we can, and I encourage everybody to join it. And we want to end diabetes throughout the nation, throughout the world, and we can just try to do our small part to help with that cost.
Their team plans on participating by biking 23 miles on Saturday. They say they won't be racing, just pedaling and remembering the reason they're out there. Even though the event is tomorrow, it's not too late for you to sign up, or you can still donate. And I'm sure Team Indy Kappa would appreciate a donation to their team. For more information on how you can get involved, head over to theindychannel.com. I'm Kelsey Anderson, RTV6.
All right. Thank you, Kelsey. It'd be a good opportunity to get out and about and work out here today and in the coming days. Today, there's still a little bit of humidity that is going to be around that you'll have to contend with, but not much in the way of rain chances. You see our rain chances today, only about 20% as we get into the afternoon hours, and that really just means a hit or miss shower or thunderstorm will be possible. So that's why you do not need to cancel any plans if you do have them being outdoors. Now, our initial issue here this morning is going to be a little bit of patchy fog that you need to know about if you are going to get out on the roadways here this morning. And you notice how the visibilities change all over the area. Lafayette, 0.2 of a mile. You get to Frankfort, it's not that bad. 0.7 of a mile in Peru, but Fishers, no visibility issues really at all. And so that's the way it's going to be across central Indiana. To the south, there were some visibility issues in Bloomington. They've gotten a little bit better. Cloverdale, 0.1 of a mile visibility. So as you cross the miles off here this morning in central Indiana, especially on those highways at higher speeds, just know that those visibilities will change just a little bit. Here is a live look in Bloomington, and normally when you look at this camera, you'd be able to see a lot of lights off in the distance. All you really see are those buildings and the lights closer to the camera. So that shows the visibility issues we do have there in Monroe County. Temperatures this morning are sitting in the mid to upper 60s, so it's a warm and it's a little muggy morning for us across the area, but the skies are mainly clear once you get through that little fog layer that we have out there. And so that'll burn off very quickly, though, once the sun comes up. So it's really not a huge issue for us this morning, especially with not as many people getting on the roadways as early as they normally would if they were heading off on a normal work week and a normal commute. The storms are off to our west. This is a cold front, and you notice the storms are just broken along this front, and that's the way they'll arrive here in central Indiana. It's not going to be a solid line of storms, and in fact, as it gets here, it's probably going to lose a lot of its punch. That's why there's only about a 10 to 20% chance of an isolated shower as this front comes through, and you see a few of these showers trying to get going across the area later on this evening, and that'll be just about it as far as the rain chances go. So throughout the day today, we'll warm quickly with lots of sunshine this morning, then we'll look for a few spotty storms later on this afternoon with temperatures that'll be up into the mid 80s for your afternoon highs. Tomorrow and Sunday, we're still in the 80s. The big difference, though, the humidity comes way down, and it becomes more comfortable at night, too, to sleep with temperatures in the 50s to right around 60 degrees both Sunday and Monday morning. But we do crank the heat up pretty quickly once again to next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, as Tropical Storm Cristobal, or the remnants of it, makes its way towards central Indiana. Lauren.
All right, Todd, thanks so much. Let's take a look right now at traffic, taking you up to the northeast side, I-69 and I-465, the ramp system up there. Traffic is still pretty quiet at this early hour. We'll keep you updated if there are any crashes or delays you need to watch out for this morning.
Now to Democracy 2020. 2 days after Indiana's delayed primary, the clerk's office is still counting ballots in Marion County. All the ballots cast at vote centers Tuesday are counted, but workers are still counting all the absentee ballots, those received in the mail or hand-delivered in person. That's about 90,000 total. This was a challenging election. The office had difficulty keeping up with all the requests for absentee ballots due to COVID-19. Limiting staff in the building, and the number of vote centers was greatly reduced due to the lack of poll workers, which led to long lines Tuesday. A spokesman for the clerk's office said there are areas that can be approved looking ahead to November.
We will, review those concerns and those issues over the coming weeks. We know for sure that we will be better positioned from a staffing perspective if we are able to have, more staff processing absentee applications closer to the general election.
Hollis said counting will continue all day and they may be finished later today. We'll keep you updated.
Well, Facebook is now labeling pages, advertisements, and posts from state-controlled media outlets like China and Russia. The labels will immediately start appearing on the selected outlets' pages. Starting next week, users in the United States will start to see those labels on the outlets' individual posts. Facebook's head of security policy says the company is taking the approach to let users know more about where their information is coming from.
What a strange end of the school year. Teachers at Wayne Township schools wanted to make sure their students were recognized one last time before summer break. After our break, we'll show you the fun event they planned to say goodbye. We'll be right back.
Visit theindychannel.com/rebound.
With an unusual end to the school year, 500 Washington Township teachers and staff took to the streets to say goodbye to their students. It was something they didn't get to do when schools were shut down in March because of COVID-19. Instead, the district staged a teacher parade. The caravan covered more than 100 bus routes through West Side neighborhoods. Cars were decorated with signs, balloons, and streamers. Many families stood outside their homes with their own signs to greet the staff as well. Very fun. And wow, look how creative some of them got. That is pretty awesome. And we might see a lot of 4th of July parades canceled, unfortunately, due to COVID-19. So we're glad the kids got a parade here in between the end of the school year and that holiday.
Yeah, I love all the parades that we've been seeing with the coronavirus, still celebrating those students at the end of the year. Todd, and if anything is planned for this weekend, they're going to have great weather.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I noticed, people in the parks a lot more, just gathering with friends, sitting on blankets in parks. And so people are getting creative, getting ways to get out and about. And this weekend, it'll be a great opportunity to get out and about any way you can. Now, this morning, we're dealing with a little bit of patchy fog across the area. We'll burn this fog off pretty quickly, though, as we go throughout the course of the morning. Visibility is already starting to come up, so that is good news. We'll talk more about the fog and the weekend forecast ahead coming up when Good Morning Indiana continues. The time now is 5:27.
This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
No mother should have to do that. No parent, period. But we've got to make sure that the message is clear. IMPD must tell the truth.
Protesters in Indianapolis hitting the streets for a 7th straight day. Now at 5:30, the push to make sure that the message is clear about what they're fighting.
And for the first time ever, the American Diabetes Association will host a virtual Tour to a Cure. This morning, we're taking a look at what the event will look like and how you can participate. 5:30 here on your Friday morning. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Meredith Barrett.
And I'm Lauren Casey. Todd Clausen is joining us from home on this Friday. Todd, what can we expect for our Friday forecast?
You know, it's not a bad Friday forecast. You'll hear me mention the chance of storms in this forecast, but they're really just spotty storms this afternoon. I wouldn't let that impact you as far as your plans go here throughout the day today. The bigger issue probably going to be the heat and humidity once again. So what do you need to grab before you go? We'll definitely have the sunglasses handy. And if you are going to be out and about, drink plenty of water and have that sunscreen handy as well. The UV index today about a 9, so that means burn time is only about 15 minutes. Now, visibility is a little bit of an issue this morning. In spots, you notice below 1 mile from Peru to Lafayette down towards Terre Haute, the visibility's come up a little bit in Bloomington as well as Indianapolis. And as the sun continues to get ready to come over the horizon and skies start to brighten here shortly, we'll burn that fog off very, very quickly. Going forward throughout the day, there will be some spotty storm chances as we get into the late afternoon hours, but not before temperatures get close to 90 degrees once again today. Big changes, though, for the weekend. More on that, Lauren, in just a few minutes.
All right, Todd, thanks so much. Here's a live look north of downtown at your traffic on I-65. This is a view from 30th Street. Traffic is moving along up to speed northbound and southbound for your commute. No delays to slow you down. Well, protests continued in the Circle City for the 7th day in a row on Thursday.
And we're told another protest is expected this afternoon. Some of the protesters continuing to share their message into the early morning hours today. Our Alyssa Donovan is live at Monument Circle, where people have just dispersed. Alyssa.
That's right, Meredith. About 10 to 15 people were here just until about 4:30 this morning, continuing to spread their message. We're told that they were climbing up on top of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument and leading in chants. Indianapolis Fire Department stopped by briefly just to check on people, make sure they were being safe, providing a ladder for them to safely get up and down off the monument. The overnight protest, a continuation of the peaceful march that took place yesterday afternoon. Protesters once again meeting at Monument Circle, marching down to the state capitol and then down Mass Avenue, peacefully spreading their message of the need for change. We spoke with one of the organizers who says he's protesting on behalf of Dre'Jon Reed and his family.
I'm letting them know exactly what his mother wants, what her demands are, and keeping that before people, reminding people of that, but also reminding them of what that mother had to go through. No mother should have to do that, no parent, period. But we've got to make sure that the message is clear. IMPD must tell the truth.
Today, protesters plan to meet at the IMPD Northwest District headquarters. That's where the officer in Dre'Jon Reed's case would have reported to after the shooting. And we are expecting to hear from both Mayor Joe Hogsett today, as well as IMPD Chief Randall Taylor on plans for this weekend. We are expecting those protests to continue both Saturday and Sunday, so we're expecting them to address that today. Reporting live, Alyssa Donovan, RTV6.
Alyssa, thank you. A special prosecutor has been appointed in the Reed case. Deputy Prosecutor Rosemary Corey of Madison County will oversee the investigation. Officials announced the appointment one day after Reed's mother and attorneys representing his family made a public plea for answers. IMPD says Reed led police on a chase on May 6th, then exchanged gunfire with an officer. But the Reed family's attorney strongly refuted the claim.
Now to Minneapolis, where officers charged in George Floyd's death made their first court appearances on Thursday. This as protests across the country continue. ABC's Inez de la Cotera is in Washington now with the latest.
Overnight, a fresh wave of protests. Tens of thousands marching in Chicago. In Atlanta, officers in riot gear as protesters there broke the 9 p.m. curfew. This video from Buffalo showing what appears to be a police officer pushing an elderly man to the ground. 2 officers now suspended as the department investigates. In New York, NYPD detaining protesters at Washington Square Park. But earlier in Brooklyn, thousands kneeling long before the speaker started to address the crowd that continued to swell. They cheered, clapped in unison, and called out the name of George Floyd, his brother Terrence showing his appreciation.
I'm proud of the protest.
This as 3 of the 4 Minneapolis police officers involved in Floyd's death appeared in court. Officers Tao Thao, Alexander Kueng, and Thomas Lane each facing 2 charges, including aiding and abetting and second-degree murder. The man with his knee on Floyd's neck, Officer Derek Chauvin, charged with second and third-degree murder. Kueng's attorney saying he was only on his 3rd shift as a full-time officer and that he told officers, "You shouldn't do this." Lane's lawyer saying it was his 4th day on the job, saying he asked Chauvin twice, "Should we roll him over?" Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, a celebration of Floyd's life.
We want justice for George.
The city's chief of police taking a knee as the body of George Floyd passed by in the hearse.
It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, "Get your knee off our necks."
And George Floyd will be buried next week in Houston. Inez de la Cotera, ABC News, Washington.
This morning, there's new information in the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery. 2 of the suspects charged in the case, Gregory and Travis McMichael, made their first court appearance Thursday. The 3rd suspect, William Roddy Bryan, waived his right to appear in court. A Georgia Bureau of Investigation agent testified about what happened to Bryan, or what Bryan said happened, According to the agent, the 3 men chased Arbery in their vehicles. Bryan then hit the 25-year-old jogger with his truck as he tried to run away. When Arbery was boxed in, video shows Travis get out of the truck and confront him. The 2 can be seen in a brief struggle over the gun before it went off. 2 more shots were fired. Bryan told police Travis McMichael cursed and called Arbery the N-word after shooting him.
Meghan Markle is speaking out for the first time since the protests began about the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. The Duchess, who is biracial, delivered an impassioned message to the graduating class of Immaculate Heart High School, her alma mater. In her speech, she recounted living through LA riots when construction worker Rodney King was violently beaten by LAPD officers.
And I remember the curfew, and I remember rushing back home, and on that drive home, seeing ash fall from the sky and smelling the smoke and seeing the smoke billow out of buildings and seeing people run out of buildings carrying bags and looting. And those memories don't go away. And that's something that you should have an understanding of, but an understanding of as a history lesson, not as your reality.
Well, she ended her message by encouraging graduates to become leaders and positive examples in their communities. Markle and her husband, Prince Harry, have also been working behind the scenes and having private conversations with community leaders in Los Angeles to support the movement.
It was not a traditional graduation for IPS students, but one for the record books. Thursday, the district began a series of virtual graduation ceremonies. Crispus Attucks High School and Arsenal Tech students were recognized in professionally done video productions. IPS, along with school systems across the state, shut down in March when COVID-19 became a serious concern. Shortridge and George Washington High Schools will graduate today, and we want to congratulate them.
And for the first time in its history, the American Diabetes Association will host a virtual Tour de Cure. The event is for tomorrow morning. It's going to be on Facebook Live, and so our Kelsey Anderson is joining us this morning with a look at the virtual event and how one team is working to be #1 in the fundraising department.
Even though the finish line looks different this year, the mission is still the same, raising awareness and money to hopefully one day find a cure for diabetes.
It gives us a chance to maintain our own health and get caught up and have fun for a good cause.
Derek Jackson and Steve Johnson are on Team Indy Kappa. Their fraternity has been involved in Tour de Cure for about 5 years. It started out as just wanting to keep their members healthy and participate in a good cause.
And then it became something that we enjoyed, and it became more of a social event. Plus, to get out there and exercise and ride our bikes and ride it in a community event that would help the diabetes organizations.
Right now, they are the #1 fundraising team, and they plan to keep it that way through Saturday. Jackson says they have friendly competitions within their own team and, of course, monitor how other teams are doing.
So it's fun to look and see where they are and if we can stay ahead of them. And then there's a strategy. You know, I can't tell you what it is because I know Team Red. Somebody may see it and go, oh, that's what they're doing.
The ADA has rewards for fundraising milestones, but both men say the rewards aren't why they participate.
The awards are great, but more than anything, it's about helping out the Diabetes Association.
Their team plans on participating by biking 23 miles on Saturday. And of course, you can still get involved. It's not too late to sign up or make a donation to the Tour de Cure. And I'm sure Team Indy Kappa would appreciate a donation to their team. For more information on how to get involved, head over to theindychannel.com. I'm Kelsey Anderson, RTV6.
All right. Thank you, Kelsey. And as I mentioned, it's going to be a great weekend to get out there and exercise. A little muggy today, but the humidity comes down over the course of the weekend. As far as you're working from home, patio forecast here for the day today. It's going to be a warm one if you're sitting outside. Make sure you have that umbrella in the table. Give yourself a little bit of shade at times because look at the temperatures as you start to go into the afternoon hours. Quickly into the mid to upper 80s across the area with skies that'll be partly cloudy. Just a small chance of an isolated storm in the forecast here in the afternoon and evening hours, only about a 20% chance. So if you do need to do some yard work, I may suggest just holding off until Saturday or Sunday to do that. Not so much for the storm chances, just for the heat and humidity that'll be around later on this afternoon. But the good news is it'll be fairly dry over the weekend to get out there and do, whether it's cutting the grass or planting some flowers. You'll be in great shape. We do bring some rain back into the forecast next week with that tropical system that's in the Gulf of Mexico. More on that coming up in just a little bit.
Todd, thank you. Pacers fans will see the blue and gold back in action next month. We've got the details on the NBA's plan to resume the season, including when the gameplay will begin. The time now is 5:42. Stick around. We'll be right back after the break.
About to fix it.
Welcome back. Now to the latest on the coronavirus pandemic here in Indiana. The State Department of Health is reporting 20 new deaths from the virus. That means more than 2,000 Hoosiers have lost their lives to COVID-19. A total of 285,234 people have been tested for the virus. More than 36,000 of those tests came back positive. That's just over a 12% positivity rate. That's a rate we've been seeing going down in recent weeks. And speaking of testing, starting today, the Marion County Public Health Department will become a free testing site for COVID-19. The county still leads the state with the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths. Testing will be offered Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Testing is also being done at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and also at Warren Central High School on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. To make an appointment for any of those locations, just go to marionhealth.org/IndyCovid. You can also call the number 317-221-5515.
If you need a mask to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, a free giveaway is set for this Saturday. Overcoming Church on Columbia Avenue near Dr. Andrew J. Brown Avenue and 22nd Street will host the event. It starts at 11 a.m. Pre-registration is required. Masks will be distributed until supplies run out. You can find a link to register on our website, theindychannel.com.
Another major event will not happen this year, and it's due to the pandemic. The Indiana State Fair Commission announcing on Thursday that the summer tradition is now canceled. The fair was set for August 7th through the 23rd. Organizers say key elements like vendors and partners fell through. A modified 4-H livestock show will still be held at the State Fairgrounds in August. Last year, nearly 880,000 people attended the fair.
You'll soon be able to see the Pacers back in action, just not at Bankers Life. The NBA has approved a plan to bring back the season by next month. The season is expected to restart July 31st with 22 of the top teams. The season will run through October 12th. All games would be played at the Wide World of Sports Complex at Disney World in Orlando without fans in the stands. And college football will likely return in the fall, but it'll look a little different as well. Purdue President Mitch Daniels gave a preview of the university's plan for games next season. Daniels said Ross-Ade Stadium, which has a capacity of about 57,000, will only be filled to 25%. That means tickets will only be sold to around 15,000 fans. Daniels says that number could change based on what the Big Ten Conference and the NCAA say, along with Purdue's medical advisory team. Daniels also said for now he doesn't see a way for fans to attend inside events. IU hasn't announced its plans quite yet. If you're making plans for this weekend, Todd Clausen has some good news. We're going to have some great weather ahead of us.
We do have terrific weather. It's going to be nice, refreshing air mass heading our way. You'll notice that changed late tonight. Now, before we get to that change, which is a cold front that'll be coming through, we do have to deal with some visibility issues here this morning and another hot and fairly humid day. You notice these visibilities right now are really fluctuating very quickly throughout the course of the morning hours. So, you notice Crawfordsville down to basically no visibility, only 0.2 of a visibility in Lafayette. Frankfort down just below 1 mile. And then as you make your way into some southern locations, the visibilities there have come up a little bit, but just below 1 mile in Columbus as well. In between these visibility issues, though, we do have plenty of clear skies. Here's the look in Bloomington, and you notice you can see off in the distance a little bit more than you could just a little while ago if you joined us last hour and I showed you this camera view. We also have a beautiful full moon that is out there. I just got a picture from Mike up at Morse Lake Weather, and I'm going to show you that coming up here in the next half hour. I just didn't quite get it loaded into my system in time for this weather hit, but I'll show you that. But go outside and take a look before the moon sets if you want to see that, the full strawberry moon. 69 in Muncie right now, 68 in Greenwood, 67 is the current temperature as you make your way down into the Bloomington area. So with the exception of the patchy fog, which is a very thin layer out there, we'll have clear skies this morning. As soon as the sun comes up, we'll burn that fog off really, really quickly, and we'll be left with a nice morning across the area. The cold front is up to our northwest. That's where that broken line of showers and storms are, and that's what's going to be heading through our area later on this afternoon and into the evening hours. Now, TrueCast isn't picking up on a lot in the way of storm action, just a few hit or miss showers here or there, but I do think that there will be some spotty storms that will go through with this front. We're just so warm, we're so humid that there has to be some showers that will move through as this front passes. So don't be shocked if you see a shower or thunderstorm this afternoon or evening, but don't cancel any plans over them because it's only about a 20 to 30% chance. Otherwise, temperatures today will be climbing all the way up into the mid to upper 80s. Here is that weekend forecast that is so terrific. Could be a little bit of lingering cloud cover tomorrow morning, but then lower humidity. High temperature of 85 degrees on Saturday. Sunday, 82 degrees. Sunday morning temperatures will be in the 50s, so great sleeping weather. But we do warm up very quickly, and it becomes very humid again next week because whether we get a lot of rainfall or just a little bit of rainfall from what is now Tropical Storm Cristobal, it will bring up the heat and humidity with it from the Gulf of Mexico. So it's definitely going to be hot and humid Tuesday into Wednesday, and then we'll kind of fine-tune the rain chances from that storm as we get a little bit closer. Lauren?
All right, Todd, thanks so much. We're keeping a close eye on traffic as you're heading out the door this Friday. Take a look here at I-70, a little west of Lyndhurst Drive. Traffic moving westbound is traveling up to speed. Eastbound lanes there are quiet, and that's because they are closed between Ronald Reagan Parkway and the South Split downtown. Eastbound I-70 is closed for a major construction project. That's set to wrap up on June 28th. Until then, if you're traveling eastbound in that direction, you can take the collector ramp to 465 there to reroute. We'll continue to keep you updated if there are any other delays or crashes out there on the roads for your commute. Well, it could be a while before theaters open back up, but you can still enjoy a night out at the movies. Coming up, how the nostalgia is playing off at this drive-in. We'll be right back.
One good share deserves another.
Welcome back. Theaters across the country have been closed for nearly 3 months now, and it could be a while before they can reopen, but you can still enjoy a night out at the movies.
And that night will much be like the one your grandparents enjoyed a long, long time ago. Brad Brown shows us how nostalgia is paying off at the drive-in.
This is not a story about the slow death of an American tradition. It's quite the opposite. The drive-in theater is seeing a resurgence these days, and at Shelbyville's Skyline, a night out at the movies is still alive and well.
There are generations that remember the drive-ins, and now they're showing them to the new generations. So, we're seeing more and more teenagers and young adults start to come to the drive-ins.
The Skyline Drive-In is marking 70 years in business this summer. There have been ups and downs, of course, but this spring, the Skyline's old school ways have kept them in business, while multiplexes remain closed.
The last few weeks, people are, I think, glad to be able to come out and do things. We're one of the, I would say drive-ins are probably one of the top attractions right now.
Social distancing, that's built in here. Chances are you know the folks in the car parked nearby. Being outside, a natural bonus these days.
The atmosphere of a drive-in, the kids can run around, they can be a little noisy. Nobody cares, So it's a totally different experience.
The pre-show fun might include a game of cards, a short bullpen session, or a toss of the Frisbee. And here at the Skyline, some dynamite concessions, including fresh-baked pizzas and a great pork tenderloin.
It's kind of almost a communal experience because you have this large group of people outside under the stars, and it's about the atmosphere as much as it is the movies.
Once the sun goes down and the big screen lights up, it's showtime, just like it has been here since 1950.
The original drive-in fans, they're not going out so much anymore, So we need that rediscovery to continue over and over again in order to survive.
The Skyline is showing movies every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Gates open at 6. Double features start around 9:30 p.m. And Todd, if folks are heading to the drive-in tonight, some great weather for them.
Yeah, great weather tonight. If you're heading to the drive-in over the weekend or anything else, you're in even better shape as we'll get a more comfortable air mass in here starting tomorrow. Outside right now, we're dealing with some patchy fog across the area. Temperatures that are sitting in the 60s. It's another hot and muggy day for us. A little warmer than it was yesterday today as we'll get into the mid to upper 80s with just a few scattered storms later on this afternoon. I mentioned the change for the weekend. We'll talk all about that coming up when Raphael joins the ladies and I in the next half hour of Good Morning Indiana. Stay with us. We're back in just a few minutes.